My daughter-in-law called at 4:32 a.m. Your son drowned in Hawaii. You get nothing. I just smiled. At 4:32 a.m., my phone rang like a gunshot in the dark. I didn't reach for it right away. Old habits die hard when you've spent a lifetime learning that the worst news always arrives before sunrise. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the slow ticks of the clock. 4, 5, 6. Then I picked up. Her voice was sharp, controlled, almost rehearsed. "Daniel," she said, not bothering with hello, "your son drowned in Hawaii." Silence. Then she added, colder than the ocean she claimed had swallowed him. "You get nothing." I smiled. Not because I believed her. Not because I felt no pain. But because, in that exact moment, I knew something she didn't. And that knowledge changed everything. My name is Daniel Carter, and by the time most people hear my story, they think it's about revenge. It's not. It's about patience. You see, my son Ethan married Leela 3 years earlier. She was beautiful in the way mirrors are, reflective, empty, and obsessed with what stood in front of her. At their wedding, she cried loudly but never once looked at Ethan. Her eyes kept drifting to the guests, the cameras, the gifts. I noticed, fathers always do. Ethan, on the other hand, was blinded by love, or maybe by hope. He was brilliant, an engineer with a mind sharp enough to build systems that never failed, except when it came to people. After the wedding, things changed quickly. Phone calls slowed, holidays were too busy, then came the distance. When I did see Ethan, he looked thinner, tired, like someone carrying a weight he couldn't name. Once over coffee, he said quietly, "Dad, Leela thinks you don't approve of her." I laughed softly. "Son, approval isn't the same as trust." He didn't ask what I meant. He wasn't ready to hear it. 6 months before that 4:32 a.m. call, Ethan came to see me unannounced. He looked over his shoulder before stepping inside my house. "Dad," he said, lowering his voice, "if something happens to me, promise you won't believe everything Leela says." That was when I stopped smiling. We sat at the kitchen table for hours. He told me everything, how Leela had pressured him to move assets, change beneficiaries, restructure accounts for tax reasons, how she pushed him to sign documents he barely had time to read. "She wants me to take a solo trip to Hawaii," he said, "says I need space, time to think." I looked him straight in the eyes. "And what do you think?" "I think," he said slowly, "she wants me far away." That night, Ethan did something very smart. He let everyone believe he was predictable. So when Leela called me that morning, voice dripping with fake sorrow and poorly hidden triumph, I let her talk. "The Coast Guard searched for hours," she said. "They found his belongings. The waves were strong, tragic really." "I see," I replied calmly. "And just so we're clear," she added, "everything is legally mine, the house, the accounts, the company shares. You don't need to contact me again." Then she hung up. I sat there in the dark, phone still in my hand, smiling, not out of joy, but out of certainty. Because 2 weeks earlier, I'd had lunch with my son. In Berlin. Ethan had never gone to Hawaii. That trip was a decoy. While Leela tracked his location, monitored his email, and planned her future, Ethan was doing something else entirely. He was untangling himself, quietly, legally, permanently. He transferred ownership of his intellectual property into a blind trust. He rewrote his will. He recorded conversations. He documented coercion. He left a digital trail so clean and precise it could only have been created by someone who understood systems and human greed. And most importantly, he disappeared. Not to run, but to watch. 3 days after Leela's call, the news broke. Not about a drowning, but about fraud. Authorities froze multiple accounts linked to her name. A lawsuit surfaced, filed by a holding company she'd never heard of, one that owned nearly everything she thought was hers. She called me again, this time at noon. Daniel, she said, voice trembling now, there's been some kind of mistake. I let the silence stretch. They're saying the assets were never mine, she whispered. That Ethan is very much alive, I finished. Her breath caught. You lied, she said. No, I replied evenly, you assumed. The truth came out fast after that. The fake death report, the manipulated documents, the attempt to rush probate, every move she made after that 4:32 a.m. call only tightened the net around her. In court, she cried again. But this time, no one watched. Ethan testified via video, calm, clear, alive. I loved my wife, he said, but I loved the truth more. The judge agreed. A year later, Ethan and I sat on my porch as the sun set. You smiled, he said suddenly, didn't you? I nodded the moment she said you were gone. Why? Because, I said, placing a hand on his shoulder, only someone who thinks they've already won calls to gloat. He smiled back. This time it was real. So if you ever get a call in the dead of night, someone telling you everything is over, that you've lost, that you get nothing, remember this. Sometimes the smile isn't weakness. Sometimes it's checkmate.